All right, so today I'm here to discuss with you software architecture. So software conceptual design, some people call it to be high-level system design. A lot of theoretical names and concepts out there. But today we would not be focusing on to the theoretical part, but more of the practical part. And why so? Uh, because I was doing some side project or freelance project from few weeks now, around 4 to 5 weeks. Uh, Building something which is now being used by around 4 to 5k odd users, discussing some of the worst mistakes I've ever did in my development journey and one of the best decisions I have ever made in my development journey. So it goes both in the positive and negative side, but all the learnings I'm trying to compile it here. We will be discussing here. So it's kind of a very spontaneous video. I'm out here just speaking whatever have learned throughout the process of doing this. For the tech stack I have used, mostly is Mon stack with Next also. For the deployment part, I have used Render. I have used Hostinger for the domain and DNS part. Okay, so directly jumping onto the video and the technical aspects of the project. So first and the most important thing which you as a developer would think is obviously scale, right? That's what I was personally thinking about, and bringing that into consideration, uh, I started with a microservice based architecture wherein I thought I would be having my APIs sitting at the back end. Obviously I had one Express app, or an Express API. It had all the controllers, all the routes which I needed. It was connected to a Mongo server. I used MongoDB Atlas for the same, because we were not having that much of a data streaming in place. So this is where the first optimizations come. So what exactly we were trying to build was something around unstop. If you know unstop, what it is used for, so we were trying to develop a very specific use case of unstop wherein we had uh, a participant portal wherein the participant would go add their entry. So they were having multiple of the entries, like it could have somewhere around 4 to 5 video files also. So first of all, we tried to optimize it using a very vague solution, I would say, or a brute force solution, I would say. We just asked them to put it on a drive and upload it onto the portal, so that instead of serving and storing a huge bandwidth which videos and photos stream include, we are now only dealing with the textual data. And to be very specific, right now we are having data of around 4.2k users on our database, and it's less than 10 MB because it's completely textual data right now. We have metadata and all those things also. This was the first optimizations which we had. That was a completely uh, text based solution rather than going for a file based solution. Now I would get into the architectural part of the solution, which I personally think was very important when we are trying to deal with it, and maximum of the mistakes were in this particular part of the project while deploying the project, because developing Express apps, developing React app, Next app is not of a big headache these days. Almost every guy knows that, but deploying it to the scale is something of rather more importance, and this would make the difference between a good, better, and the topmost developer out there in the industry, right? So to start with what exactly I started with. This so we started with obviously the domain. So Hostinger was a platform we opted for, where we purchased a domain. We purchased a static file hosting there, not a VPS. So a difference between static file hosting and VPS is that in VPS you get a proper virtual machine. It can be from point 0.1 CPU to multiple 8 core, 10 core, 32 core, 64 core. It depends on use case, obviously. So static files, not exactly CDN, but it behaves like CDN, I would say. So we were having domain. We will discuss about the entire architecture very soon. So I would just start with the entire high level design, then we would start with how I try to optimize. So we had domain, we had a Hostinger as the hosting platform now. So we initially developed the landing page using HTML and CSS. We put it over here. It was working quite well. Now I would dive into the actual problem solution. So this is what you would tackle in the industry. So as and when you try to improve your product or improve your features, ship more features, ship more user base, you tend to expand your tech stack, right? So right now what was happening, that we were having front end HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It was querying Express app. Quite simple, right? Express app in the background was then querying data to Bongo, doing some processes and then returning the response. This was the very very basic, full stack means, right? Express deployed on the render platform. We had Hostinger as the static hosting server. Now, the next part of this system comes wherein we had to develop a admin or a moderator, judge kind of a portal, wherein we had multiple use cases. So we had a restricted access to the portal. So we had to implement login logout features. We had to implement JWT obviously there. We can talk about JWT if you want to go and just randomly go and just search about JWT. You would get this website also. So this is also a kind of debugger. You would get to know about the introduction, all those things. You can just go there and read out the blog straightforward. It just kind of a key which is stored in the browser cookie to authorize the user. So yeah, one more thing, that there's a difference between authentication and authorization. I've talked about it in the previous video. Just go there and get a glimpse out of it. Okay, so yeah, this is the entire high level architecture which we had right now. So why Next? Because we thought, yeah, let's go. We have something called as ShadCN. If you don't know ShadCN, also just go there and look forward for it. It's a wonderful UI library which we have for Next. You have multiple templates available on GitHub also, so you can get there. And basically with ShadCN, your time to market becomes really really fast, right? You can ship literally entire portals within a day or two. So just explore this also. I'm just skipping these part to you because we're more focused on the design part of the project. So starting with Next, initially, so yeah, these are typical beginner mistakes which any developer would make. Right now I know that these are mistakes, but in order to guide you, I'm just be more specific. So we use Next because we thought, yeah, shared CN hai, so we can deploy really really fast, right? This is the main issue which came upon. So now I was a fan of microservices, so I started with APIs being destructured, using MVC at the backend, using single instance of Express right now, because we're not having multiple traffic there. But now when we had this demand of a very dynamic portal, now we started with Next.js. Next.js was ready. Now I'm going to try to deploy. If you don't know how React bundles are made, if you just go and check React build files, static ones, then you would get some static websites on render also, but not render. I would just go to create my React app, create React app, and go to the creating production build part. Okay, so here whenever you run this command npm run build, you get a static file out of it. So it is kind of a bundle of JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, which gives you ultimate performance. So if you want to get a difference between what Next exactly does, what React does, you can go and search for it in the meanwhile. So on very high level, Next is just a wrapper over React. Just it is SSR, means server side rendered. Okay, so I know I'm bombarding multiple terms straight away, but SSR is server side rendering. Okay, so for this use case, Next was, I personally feel, that the worst choice. Why so? For that, first you have to know the reason of what SSR exactly is. So if you just go and search SSR Next, you might get some, yeah, so this is Next blogs only. So what exactly happens is, whenever you try to bundle your React app into a static file and then push it to a static file server, which we have also did in some other feature which we shipped later half of the project, it first has a bundle with empty data. So let's say if you have a card, whenever your browser tries to list your website on your SEO rankings, SEO basically search engine optimizations. So basically, server-side render websites completely fills the data in your website and then push it to the client or to the web crawlers. So it makes your website really really fast to be visible on the browser. But contrary to that, React apps don't do that. So this is the very vague difference, or on a very high level, this is the difference between SSR and a React app. That if you have SSR, you can get really good SEO optimized websites. With React, you don't get that because the websites are completely empty. So first you load, then you give some API calls, fetch that data, and then you have something sitting there. This is the basic difference between React and Next. You can go and search and get the exact difference. So why I am I'm stating that Next was the worst choice because first of all, Next was a restricted access. So wherein you log into this portal, you get a login password, and then only you can log in and then judge the participants. So we did not have any kind of SEO there, but still we did. Uh, I don't know why. It was basically a typical beginner mistake. We could have stick to React and made our lives easier, but again, Next is also good. So now what happened was we had render running. So render is basically uh, I would say software as a service or infrastructure as a service rather. We right now have two instances running. This is for our API and this is for our judge portal, which I've told you, which is built on Next. Why? Because when you use SSR, you can't have static file bundle. So now we had two instances running, one of Express, one of Next. Another typical user mistake. So right now, I guess the picture is very, very clear what we have did. I guess you are clear what Next exactly is, why we can't deploy directly to a static server using Next, why we can deploy a static React bundle to a static server like Hostinger, which we did here. So Hostinger has a VPS plan that's completely different, but what we opted for was the static plan of Hostinger, which is comparatively cheaper. Because initially we thought that we would be using React and we would be using HTML only, and even if we use Next, we can have a uh, bundle static file. But at the time of development, we thought let's go for SSR. But again, with time, we got to know that no, we have some wrong things in our pipeline which we have did. But till the time we developed that, we didn't, you know, even bother to look onto the deployment part. This is what you should always take care of. So I would always say that if you know this term reverse engineering, go for that. Even if you are following a particular product life cycle, go to the end part, what the end goal exactly looks like, and then come behind one step, and then go right to the first step, right? So this is what I personally thought could have been optimized there. Instead of Next, we could have been using React. So be very, very cautious when you are, choosing a tech stack, because it would impact your performance. It would impact your cost and economics also. So I guess now the entire picture is really clear that the first problem is that now we have a very, very, uh, you know, unstructured manner of deploying a website or deploying a web portal. So initially, obviously, we didn't have the long-term vision that what we look forward to do exactly. So we started with a very cheaper plan, then we scaled up or we updated our servers. But this is something wherein you should chip in your experiences, right? This you would learn with experience, no matter how much courses you do, how much uh, degrees you have, whatever you read, whatever you learn, with experiences only these things could be taught to you. So, and this is the exact thing which I want to deliver to you. So I'm recording this video because this part of the project development is not very common amongst the social media these days. So this was the exact problem. How we tackle this is the first principle of software development, or on the first, I would say the zeroth principle. If it works, don't touch it. Okay. Right now we are into the production, and I initially thought that let's club these things and bundle them into a single cluster and then do whatever you want to in the coming days. But what the problem exactly is, that we are onto the production right now. If you don't know something about DNS, this is something very, very important if you want to go forward and really do some amazing stuff as projects out there. So if you don't know about DNS, it's domain name system or domain name service. They are used interchangeable. I'm not completely aware, but what it exactly does is, so we had our domain which you purchased on Hostinger, right? So Hostinger has its own DNS server, let's suppose. So what it does, let's say I have two routes or two links to be precise. One is google.com and the other is gemini.google.com. Okay. For the sake of simplicity, I'm taking these common domain and subdomain. So what exactly we were doing right now is point this google.com or the primary domain to the hostinger, and the secondary domain or the subdomain to the next app. This creates another overhead. I have talked about inbound and outbound traffic also, because we get billed according to the outbound traffic also. It depends on po- uh, infrastructure to infrastructure, but more or less you have to work on reducing the outbound traffic. Whenever I say outbound traffic, it's basically when we have multiple systems. So right now what we have, this is individual system, this is individual system, and this is individual system, because we're running two different instances. These two are from same platform, but obviously they have different IPs altogether. Now another thing which we faced is that not so we don't have the optimal use of our compute resources, and this is something which is a nightmare of a developer. Okay, if you are paying for something and you're not able to optimally use this particular compute resource, this is something no developer or no company ever wants to do. Okay, and if I want to show the exact numbers, okay, so I'm going to show the highest numbers right now with our backend APIs also. Okay, till the time it's loading. Okay, it's done, I guess. So yeah, going to the metrics. So this is the onto the production right now. We have users using it right now. You can see only 13% of the memory. So we have only zero point 0.1 CPU or zero point 0.5 CPU. Okay, out of which we are using hardly 1%, on an average 0.2%. uh, and outbound bandwidth, okay, not of big concern this. So you can see we are using almost no CPU or no memory which we have actually rented out for. And why this? Because we distributed the system. So instead of this, if we could have clubbed all the files or all the systems together, it would have been really good, right? So we are using multiple logs and all those things also, but towards the end and the memory which you're seeing it, just because we are having some good or decent amount of logs there, and we are not optimized the logs also. So what could have been a better approach? So now we would move to what we are looking to develop as a good part. Okay, so this was about the entire problem or the entire uh, I would say mismanagement of resources which we did, because of which we are incurring higher costs. There are multiple more things. So yeah, another thing which the another feature which we shipped right now was a billing system or a certification system. So why is it of big concern to me right now? So if I have not mentioned before, so this Express app was doing or serving or handling more of textual data, or just in the JSON format. Okay, and it is not heavy at all. And what was the need of a billing system or certification system? Because we wanted to have okay, so I would just build a context here. Or let's suppose you complete a course and now you want to get a certificate out of it. So these certificates are a template PDF which are predefined, and we just have to chip in the dynamically the course name, the username, maybe the user age, or some other parameters like that. But you need to serve that PDF from some endpoint, right? Again, people might say that bring it onto the front end and then let them use. But obviously if you bring the file in the front end or store it in the front end part and then use it for your use case, it might not be the best way for us, or a secured way. It might be tampered from the client side. So another thing which you have to be very very vigilant about is what you are sending to the client side. So if you have to avoid sending any generic data or any metadata which is not required to the client side. Okay, so what this blend certification needed was that these template PDFs stored in the database need to be queried every time. And now that we are not using our CPU compute resources, we had okay, so we had two options here. Okay, let's say we have two options to do this. One is something called as a CDN, that is a content delivery network, and another is to our REST API, which is our Express API, right? So what we initially thought that let's go to CDN and post over there. If you don't know something about Bunny, So we have bunny.net, which is kind of which delivers CDNs also. So if you go here and see their pricing or products, you would be knowing what they exactly do. So for different area they have different costs and all those things. So these are CDNs built by them. They are serving CDNs as a service. So different companies serve different things which they want to. So these are CDNs. CDNs are basically lightning fast networks. They basically, now okay, if you want to know more about CDNs, I can make a different video out of it. But just take it to be a cache server wherein the only job of that thing is to serve heavy files, static files. It can be dynamic, but usually we don't do that. So we had two options here. One is to basically use a CDN, and other is to basically use the REST API which you have previously built. Now again, a clever, not so clever I would say, but what we did or what I did was to use the same Express API instead of spending more money or more resources on a CDN. Why? Because you're not using any resources. So you have previously seen we're using hardly 10% of the entire resource structure which we have right now. So now we, instead of going for a CDN, we opted out for a REST API based approach. So this feature was really built fast because the infrastructure we had were already overwhelming, or it was really of not that level or serving the particular use case which we had. It was beyond that. So we chipped in this feature also. So this feature was rolled out. So this was the entire thing which I worked upon. These were the problems. This was for the part one. In the next video, we were discussing about what the solution exactly is of this particular problem and how you should not do that. So there are multiple things which did really good here. First of all, was not to take in uh, heavy files like videos, audios, and images. Instead, stick to the drive approach. It was not a naive approach, obviously. For industries, we won't, no industry would, or no company which is serving thousands of users would do that. But yeah, it was a side project, or it was just for the sake of simplicity. We did that because cost was a major barrier in our case. So that is obviously not recommended, but this can be used if you are on a very early stage startup or early stage company. Uh, Reducing resources or reducing costs is what you should look forward to. So these were all the good things, and obviously the monolith thing and the microservice thing. So if you are now able to get the exact problem for the microservices, that if you are not sure what kind of scale you are going to serve in the upcoming weeks or months, I would not talk about years, just in the next few sprints I would say, then sticking to a monolithic server would we would make it easier for you to develop and deploy. As you can see in this case, we never had the use case of doing this. So yeah, behind the scenes also we were having scalable options. We'll discuss in the second part of the video about that. So I am sure that you are now quite aware of what the exact problem was and what you don't have to do in the case if you're trying to start to develop an app of this scale. Okay, so this was about the problem. We were discussing about the solution in the next part of the video. Keep learning. Bye.